Hi, I'm Joseph Phillips. I'm the Director of Education at Instructing.com, and I'm the author of several books on project management. In this series of videos, we're talking about value in project management. Value in project management is why we're doing the project, the thing, the outcome that our project creates. That desired future state is what we value, what we treasure in the project. So we talked about initiating the project, about kicking things off, talked about planning, you have to plan for value, and then execution, we have to execute in order to achieve the desired future state, in order to achieve the value. Now we're talking about monitoring and controlling. Monitoring and controlling is that we want to make certain that things are done according to plan. We can't just create a plan and hand it to the team and say, see you later. Although sometimes we would like to. We have to monitor and control the work that's being done. So it's kind of some guide rails, some bumpers, if you will, to keep people on track. So I think about when I was much younger and my boy was much younger and smaller, and we would go to this bowling alley and they would have these bumpers set up in the lane so he could take that ball and just whiz it wherever he wanted, and it would bounce around down the aisle and eventually hit all the pins, and it was very exciting. It was a lot of fun. Well, that's the idea of monitoring and controlling, that we have bumpers, we have rails that keep us moving in the right direction. So if we didn't have monitoring and controlling, it might go in the gutter, or it might go in the next lane, or it might not get moving at all. So monitoring and controlling is some guide rails, some guidelines of making certain that we and our team are all moving in the right direction to get things done. So as we think about monitoring and controlling, let's go back to scope. So we'll walk through our knowledge areas. So here in scope, one of the big things that we have to monitor and control is that the work is being done in alignment with what we promised, being done in alignment with our scope management plan, our scope statement, and work breakdown structure. We don't want the team to be creating things that are outside of scope. So if this is our scope, and they're creating these little changes here, or in addition to, that is scope creep. Often scope creep happens when a stakeholder, the customer, comes to your team and they say, look, I know you're working on this, but can you add this little extra feature? That was not in scope. Scope creep is project poison because it kills our schedule and it kills our budget, which threatens value, the original vision of the project. So monitoring and controlling, we have to control scope creep. We don't let these little tiny changes come into scope, because that's doing time and money on things that we did not plan for, things that are not in scope. So scope creep, we don't allow it. We want to keep that away, only do what's in scope. And then we have the concept of gold plating. Oh, gold plating is one where a lot of project managers and customers get mad at me. Not because I do it, because I don't let them do it. Gold plating is when I have a project and I say this project's going to cost $500,000, all right? And we get towards the end of the project and I can see there's about $80,000 left in the budget. Well, we'll take that $80,000 and add some nice, cool things to this. We'll add some bells and whistles, we'll do some more testing, I'm gonna add some landscaping, whatever it is. We're gonna spend that 80 grand because we have it in the project budget. Well, everything that you're spending that 80 grand on is not part of the scope, that you are finishing under budget. What this really means is that you had cost savings or you bloated your cost estimates, that just in case money. So your estimates weren't really valid. That 80 grand should not just be spent on the project. That's gold plating. It's like you're taking your keyboard and dipping it in gold just to spend the money, not to make it better. So that 80,000, if you are wanting to spend it, you have to get permission from the customer, the people who actually own that 80,000. It's not just in the budget to do with what you want. That if you want to add those extra features, that extra testing, that landscaping, you need to propose a change to the customer. A couple of reasons why. A lot of reasons why. One, those changes were not in the original scope. That's not what we asked for. We asked for these things. And just because you got done below budget doesn't mean I want to spend that money. So first off, it wasn't in scope. The second reason is I might need that $80,000 that are left over in your budget. I might need that for this other project over here that has some issues, or that we want to use that in order to launch this project or make payroll or whatever the case may be. But that 80,000 is not just to be spent if we have already satisfied the project scope. The third reason may be the thing that you're creating. If it's done, I don't want these extra features. I want the thing you're creating, because now I can use what you've created in the organization. I can use it to solve this problem or to realize an opportunity or what have you. So for you to add these little features, it's not just the money, it's the time it takes to add those features. So feasibly, you're done, or you're about to be done. I don't want to add more stuff. I want just this thing in order to begin using it. So that is gold plating. It's part of our scope control. Of course, we need to control our time. A big thing that we have in time is the concept of Parkinson's law. When we go about doing our estimating of how long the project or phases or individual activities will take, there's often a tendency to pad the time. Like, I know this activity will probably take me a week. I'm gonna say, I'll say 10 days. We'll stretch it out there. Just because if something goes wrong or I have interruptions, I don't want to be late, so I'm gonna say 10 days. And so another person says, well, probably 3 days, but I'm gonna say 5 days for the same reason. So everyone begins to pad their time. Well, Parkinson's law tells us that work expands to fill the time allotted to it. So if you say that activity would take 5 days, even though you could do it in 3, it will magically take 5 days. And then if I said, 5 days, but I'm gonna get it done in 10, it'll magically take 10 days. It's like the day before you go on vacation, you can work expediently and get a lot of stuff done. But the day you come back from vacation, it takes you all day to do one email, because work expands to fill the time allotted to it. Now, often what happens when people bloat their estimates, so 3 days, but I'm gonna say 5, is, well, I know I've got 2 days in here of float, for lack of a better word, or 2 days that I fudged the actual duration. So I'm gonna screw around on Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday I better get to it. And then on Wednesday I get to it and I hope and pray that nothing breaks or goes wrong, and that I can really get this done in 3 days. Often what we see, right, is that, okay, it's 5 days, I mess around on days 1 and 2, and I get to work on day 3, and then there is an issue or a problem, and it ends up taking even longer than the original 5 days. That's Parkinson's law. So when it comes to time and our monitoring and controlling, this is some overlap back with planning. So remember, these aren't distinct phases, they're sets of process groups. So monitoring and controlling works in tandem with planning. And so as we are planning or doing time estimating or cost estimating, we want to be very realistic about our time estimates and our cost estimates. So here in monitoring and controlling, as someone says our time, we need to have evidence of how long that will actually take. Now, I know some of us, some of our team members especially, are like, well, you just expect me to never have anything go wrong. That's not exactly true. That we know there are things that are going to happen. There are going to be issues, there are going to be interruptions, there's going to be breakdowns or illness or what have you. So what we do back in planning is we have a chunk of time called management reserve, that we take our ideal time of how long the project should last. Let's say it's 6 months. And then we take about 10% of that. So 6 months, we'll say 180 days. We're going to take 10% of that, 18, we'll just round it up to 20. So we have 20 days that are set aside in management reserve that if there are interruptions or delays or what have you, we have this pool of when the project is actually to be done. So the work should take 180 days, and then we have this little chunk of time at the end that if there are interruptions or delays, it can shift and eat into the management reserve without affecting our actual project end date. We still could succumb to Parkinson's law with this management reserve. The difference is, if you're saying 3 days and I'm saying 3 days, you know it's 3 days, but you say 5, and I know this will take 5 days and I say 10, and Ekta is saying 15 days, even though she knows it will take 7, and Sam over here is saying, and so on. We have all of this bloat on each individual activity. What we're doing here is not bloating, we're saying the sum of all the days, the overlap and so on that happens, some of those are gonna come in late, some are gonna come in on time, and that we push the project into, as a whole, into that pool of time. Not each individual activity that's bloated that's going to take probably way longer than the 10% or so that we've allotted here at the end of the project. So we have to be aware when we get into execution for time and cost that our estimates are accurate or as very reliable. So based on historical information, based on our experience as a PM, and then based on our trust and reliance on the project team. Now, quality in monitoring and controlling is we're doing quality control. Quality control is the idea that we inspect the work that it is of quality. Quality control is we're aiming to catch defects before they get out to the customer. So quality assurance is we do the work right the first time. Quality control, we want to prevent mistakes from entering the project. So QC is inspection driven. You have to go out and inspect the work. So this is where we get into the idea in monitoring and controlling. We have different charts, like a run chart, a control chart, a Pareto chart, and some other quality control charts that we can use to look for trends, to look for areas that we're having the most defects in quality that allow us to respond to that and prevent those mistakes from coming into the project again. Quality is so important in our project, but it's not just the thing, it's also how we manage the project. We want to make sure that how we manage the project is of quality. In resource management, the control that we have here, we don't like to use the idea that we're controlling people, but we do have to control and monitor the individual's time, the monies that we spend, the communication that's happening. How many times in a project do we have experiences where people are out talking and they don't know what they're talking about, or they have a misunderstanding and it blows up and becomes this big rumor or this totally wrong information about the project? So we have to monitor and control and kind of keep a beat on what's happening in our project with our stakeholders. So monitoring our project communications is directly linked to stakeholder engagement. Because who are we talking with? And who's talking in the project? Well, that's people, our stakeholders, that we want to squash rumors and gossip and things that don't actually hold any weight or bearing or factualities. I like that, actualities and factualities in our project. We want to make certain that things are done properly and that the information that's getting out there is of accuracy. So factualities, very important. Now, risk monitoring and controlling, throughout the project, we are always on the lookout for risk. A risk is an uncertain event or condition. Don't know if it's going to happen or not. That can have a positive or more likely a negative effect on our project. So we are always looking for risk. And then monitoring and controlling, well, are there thresholds that tell us that a risk event is going to happen? Are there events that show us this risk is going to happen? Those are called risk triggers because they trigger our risk response. Now, the people that are doing the risk monitoring and controlling, yes, you, the project manager, but really it's our project team members, that people that are closest to the risk event. If we have a team member that's working with electricity, some type of electrical engineer or what have you, and they're very close to that risk event, they don't need to, okay, let me leave this risk, dealing with electricity, it's very dangerous, and go have a meeting. No, that person's the risk owner, that they're empowered to respond to that risk event, that they want to respond to it in the moment as it is likely to happen. When they see that risk is going to pass over the threshold, we have a risk trigger to then respond to trigger our risk responses, the mitigation, the transference, the avoidance, whatever the case may be for that particular risk event. So risk monitoring and controlling happens throughout the whole project, that we identify the risk, and then we have risk owners, the people that are closest to the risk events actually happening. Then we have our procurement, all right? Procurement, monitoring, controlling, we're making certain that all parties live up to the terms of the contract. So yes, all parties being my organization and the vendor, the people that we're buying from, they have to live up to the terms of the contract as well. So risk monitoring and controlling has a procurement element to it because we can do transference. So if we transfer a risk event like that dangerous electrical work, we're probably going to have procurement involved because we have to have procurement to do the contract in order to transfer the risk event. So this is a great example of how there's overlap, there's integration among these different knowledge areas. So in procurement, all parties live up to the terms of the contract. We have to monitor and control that to make certain that the parties involved, the vendor, the buyer, that everyone lives up to the terms. When there's a dispute about living up to the terms, then we get into claims management. So with claims, there's a disagreement about what's happening in the contract. And then finally, we have our stakeholder engagement. We wanted to monitor and control our stakeholder engagements levels. Kind of hard to control it, but really we're monitoring it. And we want to take action to improve our stakeholder engagement. So we have stakeholders that they have a poor attitude towards our project versus stakeholders that have a very good and exciting and supportive attitude. Well, what can we do to maintain this exciting and good attitude? And what can we do to try to bring these other stakeholders up? What's our goal or target for improving their attitude or perception towards our project? So that's stakeholder engagement as far as monitoring and controlling goes. A lot of information here in monitoring and controlling. Very important to do in all projects. Our thing that we're monitoring and controlling is the execution and the plan, that we're executing according to plan in order to create the project vision, in order to create the value of the project. All right, great job. Thank you for your time and attention. If you like this video, leave me a comment below about other videos you would like to see. Do me a favor and share this out on LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever you gather with your project management peers. I would appreciate it. Keep moving forward.